I want to welcome everybody to the Guest Lounge as part of our Worship Lounge series. And today we are very honored to have a special guest, Nancy Coe. She's the author of The Thank You Project. The subtitle of that is Creating or Cultivating Happiness, One Letter of Gratitude at a Time. So thank you for being with us, Nancy. And my first question to you is, are you grateful today?
I am grateful today, and I have to say hi to all my St. John's people. I feel so sad that I can't see you face to face, and I feel even worse that you have to look at me and I can't look back at you. But I'm thinking of everybody, and I hope everybody who's hearing this is doing okay and staying safe and staying inside. Do I feel grateful? I do. Because I have a friend in Hong Kong who gave me a good piece of advice a couple of days ago, because we're all under shelter in place orders, but both our daughters have made it home before that happened. So I've got a senior in college finishing up her school year and a freshman in college finishing up her school year and a husband working from home. So I feel grateful that I know where my people are and we're all under one roof.
And what would you say in this time where certainly people are afraid? I remember reading one of your blogs recently that especially addressed that, the role that gratitude plays in dispersing fear in our lives.
It's a great question. One of the things that I learned, the book, just in case you don't know, the book is based on a year I spent writing thank you letters once a week to people who had helped or shaped or inspired me in some formative way up to that point in my life, including Father Scott Denman. He got a letter. And it was I just started it off thinking it was going to be this nice kind of karmic good housekeeping situation where I was going to go back and sort of properly thank people for the role that I understood that they had taken in my life. But what happened over and over is I felt so much better having written the letters, and it was a psychological response and a physiological response where I could feel as I was writing these letters once a week, I would feel my shoulders sinking and I would feel my jaw unclenching. And what happened was something that started off as very kind of lighthearted. Oh, this is it's a great, I'm going to write thank you notes. It actually unfolded during a very difficult time. My dad died suddenly partway through the year I wrote the letters. And it ended up being, and also Maddie left for college, and it was the 2016 presidential election, which was a stressful time. And I've realized because of that the deliberate expression of gratitude was a very powerful antidote to all the fear and anxiety I was feeling for whatever reason. And so when I wrote the book, I wanted to understand that better. So I went to the scientists. There's so much research now that looks at the interplay between gratitude and happiness. And what happens is it's very easy to get stuck in what's called a negative recall bias loop. And that is simply our tendency as humans to look for the worst thing first and to think about that and to recognize it. And it's not always a bad thing. You should be nervous about touching that faucet handle after somebody didn't wash their hands. I mean, that's negative recall bias telling you, beware, you should wash your hands. But the problem is when you get stuck there. And so what scientists have discovered is that the most effective way to turn that around and to kind of drown out those negative feelings all the time is through positive recall bias, which is looking for positive things around you. And if you do that, you start to rewire the pathways of your brain so that it becomes faster and more efficient to recognize positive things around you. So I think in times like we find ourselves now, where we're anxious and stressed and we're absolutely overwhelmed by terrible news, it's more important than ever to stop and take the breath and think, what am I thankful for right now, right this moment? What is the thing I can be thankful for? And this was the advice from my friend in Hong Kong, who has been on house lockdown for 7 weeks at this point. And she said, stop and just think right now, something to be thankful for. It's a dog curled up at your feet, or a good book that you're going to read tonight, or the fact that we can see each other even if we're separated, we can still look at each other through computer technology. So that it's a very powerful practice.
It reminds me of, I think what Anne Lamott said, that there are basically two prayers. Help me, help me, help me, and thank you,
Thank
thank you,
you, thank
thank
you.
you. It's a sort of, we're combining those these days, hopefully.
Hmm.
Um, so how would you help people not only feel grateful, but to express gratitude? Because one of the things I remember reading in your book was, we all have this fear. You very humorously, as always, put it, that we might seem like somebody standing outside a window with a boombox playing Peter Gabriel as we write or express our gratitude to somebody. People are pretty suspicious, maybe, or we project that upon them as we try to write them or share our gratitude for them.
Well, that's a question that has come up a lot, and I'm glad you asked it. I think we do. The good news is it is usually a projection. People are not unhappy to receive a letter that says, "Thank you, you made my life better." There's not a lot in that letter to feel unhappy about. So I know it's really a question of allowing yourself to feel vulnerable when you do write those letters. So that was exactly what you're saying. I had a couple of early readers who said, "What if I send a letter to somebody and they say, 'I changed your life. I don't even know who you are.'" So it's a very common and normal thing to think. But again, going to what the science has found about this is that people have a tendency to underestimate the positive impact that a gratitude letter will have on its recipient. They overestimate how awkward they're going to feel sending that letter. And that overestimation and underestimation working together may prevent you from doing something that's really going to benefit both parties. So, you know, maybe you will write a letter to a teacher who doesn't quite remember you from the throng of students she's had, but I don't think she's going to feel bad that you told her that she was the most important teacher you ever had. Now, that being said, and I say this throughout the book, you never have to mail any of these letters. There is no thank you note police. No one's coming around to make sure that you're sending out every single letter. So in my case, there were definitely a few that I wanted to write to express my gratitude to someone who I didn't necessarily want to be in touch with, or maybe it was somebody who isn't around anymore. I mean, I wrote to some of my favorite authors who are long gone, and I knew I would feel good just writing down why I appreciated them. But it didn't mean that and in the case of, for instance, a boss who was so lousy that I ended up going into a different field, that was a very helpful relationship to me, although it didn't feel that way at the time. You can look back at some of your negative experiences of your life and reframe them as something to be grateful for. And you might not want to send those letters, and that's fine. But especially now when people are sitting home alone, maybe getting a letter in the mail right now could be a really powerful tonic.
Right. Well, I'm glad to know that having been driven away from another career by somebody, that you still remain an Episcopalian.
Well,
So
I've never found somebody yet to drive me away from Episcopalianism yet.
we're glad you're
Keep
here.
trying, guys. Keep trying.
So, how are you coping day to day? It's a very strange time for all of us. People are feeling very isolated, obviously. We hope that people will tune in to just connect with other people. We're actually going to try something really new, or we're trying it this week as people see this interview, of the passing of the peace done virally. So we're going to give people two options to tune in to a Zoom. But just, I think people are missing seeing each other, as you said at the beginning. And but what are you doing as a family to remain vibrant and aware and moving through this difficult time?
But first of all, I feel lucky to be asked the question. I want to make it clear that I understand that I am in a place of privilege. We are in a house, we are together, everybody here is healthy. And so my heart goes out to anybody who doesn't have those advantages. And I feel like a part of what I'm trying to do is remember at every juncture to keep my perspective that not only are we relatively lucky, but it's our role to help people who are not. So I think one of the things that's making me feel better is donating some money, for instance, to the local bookstore. I just bought a gift certificate from Great Good Place for Books, which has been such a wonderful friend to St. John's over the years, because small business people really need our support. I just made a donation to the food bank because we all know that there are so many less fortunate people. But beyond that, I would say I have a rule instituted this week: call an old person every day. So the one thing that's been a little stressful about, or particularly stressful about this for our family, is that my mom got moved from assisted living into memory care last Friday, and we had planned that move. It was the right time for her. She's got dementia. She's in upstate New York, but she moved into memory care. They closed the doors, and she can't get visitors. So none of my siblings have seen her. I haven't been able to talk to her because her phone wasn't hooked up. So I did get to talk to her today. She's doing fine. But it just reminded me how many elderly people are feeling scared and feeling isolated. So I've got to dial around, and I'm just trying to call somebody every day just to say hello. And, you know, that is a scary demographic to be in right now. And they need to know that we're thinking of them and looking forward to seeing them when this is all over. So that's helping. We are baking like crazy. When you next see me, I'm going to weigh 800 pounds. I'll be the girl who's rolled into the back of the church. And we're reading a lot of books. And I'm glad that we live in a part of the world where we can go outside when the weather's nice. And I encourage everybody to go outside and walk around, either 6 feet apart from someone you need to talk to, or even all by yourself is good.
I can tell you one thing I'm really grateful for: the number of people at St. John's who've reached out to us as a staff to offer in any way to help other people. As we make calls, and I too have I made a bunch of calls yesterday and will so today. I started right kind of in the older section of the congregation, and getting a real sense of who may at some point run out of food. They mostly feel pretty good right now, but you know, just in finding ways for people not to leave their home, especially if they're vulnerable, but to have a team here at the church to safely, with lots of wipes and so forth, deliver packages onto the doorstep of those who really need it, so that they don't have to interact or go out into public.
I've been thinking too about if people are able to use FaceTime, because it's one thing to talk on the phone, but if you're by yourself in your house or you're feeling isolated, I think it's better to use FaceTime and just like you get that nonverbal communication and, you know, remind each other this is all temporary. So I've been trying to do more FaceTime than I usually do. I don't usually have to put makeup on. Like I definitely put on lipstick today knowing that I was going to do this. Thank you, St. John's, for giving me a reason to blow the dust off that thing this week.
You know, I forgot to put my lipstick on.
I know, Scott. Gosh, come on, man. Step up.
So I'm also grateful for the fact that people, you know, we're getting very articulate about using Zoom now. And so I've been in as many meetings as I've been in all week with people who are still meeting to do some good things and to move things forward. So we're really getting a good handle on some of this technology. But also, St. John's has been in touch with the Oakland Public Schools. And more particularly, we would like to help with the children that need food.
Right.
Who are really
a huge concern
hungry
in this community.
And so the director, the systems director, is in touch with me about how St. John's might be of help doing that. Certainly we can help financially. We don't want to complicate their volunteer process, but there may be opportunity for us to also help deliver to the different sites
Great.
Food and so forth in a safe way. So stay tuned with that. So what final words would you share with us about gratitude and expressing it to all of us who desperately need to stay grateful during this time?
Well, I'll give everybody an assignment, and you don't need pen or paper. You just need yourself and your memories. And what it is pick someone to whom you are grateful, somebody who has helped shape the path of your life, maybe somebody from your past, maybe somebody who lives in your house with you and under shelter in place, but someone to whom you owe a debt of thanks, and just think about why that is. Just take a little time, zone out at your desk or wherever you're listening, and think about, what have you learned from this person? What have they brought into your life? What's a time that they helped you in a way that made your life better? And even just thinking about those things, even if you never write them down, it starts to train your brain to look for more positive things. Now, I think you have plenty of time. You don't have a lot of outside obligations right now. So I do think it's good to write those things in a letter that you're going to give that person. But even if you don't, and you have dispensation, you don't have to, just starting to think about the specifics of how that person has made your life better is a great first step. And then if you've done that, think of the next person. You might even want to just start making a list of who you want to have that thought exercise about and see where it takes you.
Well, one thing for sure, Nancy, is I'm grateful for you. And I know St. John's feels that way as well. So I invite everyone viewing this guest lounge to look for our next series, where we will have, once again, a special guest join us next week. Thank you for tuning in.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Scott.